Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
Is there really, truly a better time than the time that we have right now, right before our eyes? I mean, it feels like almost like we have Christmas right around the corner. That's what it personally feels like to me. I'm sure that's what it feels like for you guys as well. But with that being said here, beautiful time here tonight. We got ourselves a nice show here as we get ready to enjoy ourselves on the final precipice, as we are now 16 hours away from the kickoff of the 2026 season. At least if you are an FBS guy, the FCS already has some chaos. And if the FCS has shown us something from last night, we might be in for a truly special season. So dial in. It's going to be a good one here, and I hope you guys have a good time here on the channel tonight. And if you are, make sure you do a couple of things here real fast. Go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well if you happen to be brand new. And shout out to wide receiver Whip, by the way. Yes, we did rank all 138 teams, and we technically did that twice in the post-spring time as well as in the preseason as well to go with that. But man, we still have a couple of games here that we still need to go ahead and preview. And it's going to be some of those late night games that, you know, maybe as the sun is getting ready to set, but the chaos is certainly not going to go anywhere. Normally when it gets closer to nighttime, we have a little bit more chaos to work with. And I think it certainly applies with both of the games that we are going to go ahead and preview here tonight. And it starts with a game that was a little bit of a banger, a little bit of a game that we were able to sit back and enjoy last season for this week 0 matchup. And that is going to be the Stanford Cardinal hosting the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. And both of these teams are coming with a different set of expectations coming into this season. Hawaii, even with the loss of Padlock, one of the best receivers on the team, you know, they still have these high expectations of competing for a Mountain West championship at the very end of the season. Whereas for Stanford comes into this thing, and Stanford, you know, we no longer have the Frank Wright leading the way. You have what you're thinking is going to be your long-term head coach in Tabitha Pritchard now going ahead and leading the way here as well. So you now have a direction, and this first year is all about Stanford trying to go ahead and build a little bit of momentum going into this season and just trying to find what those foundational pieces are. And really diving into this Hawaii and Stanford matchup in particular, I really look at this Hawaii and Stanford game, and there's a lot of game in between the games, right? If that makes any kind of sense. There's really a lot of, hey, there's a lot of smaller matchups that I think holistically is going to go ahead and dictate just in terms of how this game is actually going to go, because it could genuinely swing either way, even though the home location is going to be different. And it really starts out at the line of scrimmage. And when you think about Hawaii football, what do you think about Hawaii football first and foremost? You're thinking about the fun, fast passing attack and that really exciting offense that they have out there on the Western Islands, whether it's Micah Awahata leading the way and some of those really nice receivers that are out there on the perimeter as well. That's the first thing that you're obviously thinking about when you're thinking about Hawaii football. But man, when you really take a look at this roster holistically, going into Timmy Jang's 5th season with the team, Hawaii got better at the line of scrimmage, and it applies to both sides of the footballs, especially that defensive line. I mean, this Hawaii football team heading into this season, right? This Hawaii squad did a really nice job of adding some reinforcements into the transfer portal. And it's underrated guys, such as an Ozzie Pollard, for example, who interior defensive lineman from the NAIA ranks, which you could scoff at that all you want, but for an interior defensive lineman, he was a disruptor, right? With 8 TFLs, 5 sacks. Like, that is the type of guy that they brought in that can immediately make an impact for this Hawaii football team heading into this season, whether it be as a starter or maybe it's someone that's sitting in the twos and being able to provide some relief to make sure that there isn't too much of a drop-off between what you have as your starting defensive front and when you get into those twos, because that's really the big thing. And it's not just with Hawaii. It's with a lot of programs right now, with NIL, with the transfer portal. Holistically, you're just looking at teams just not being as deep. And on top of that as well, the NAIA just pulled off an upset. The NAIA just proved that they can come out and beat Division I football teams. We literally saw this last night with Louisiana Christian going out and beating Northwestern Louisiana State, right, in a late night high-scoring classic. So just because it's NAIA, it's a much lower perceived level, doesn't mean that they can't come in and make meaningful impacts. We've seen this before. We literally seen this happen last night. But Stanford's offensive line, interesting enough, they also got better at the line of scrimmage. And I thought that was something they did a nice job at. They added players like an Aiden Killstrom transferring in from Harvard, who has that experience on the offensive line, a very good Harvard program. And I think it was really important for Stanford to come out and improve at the line of scrimmage, because think about what happened last time that we saw these two teams play this time last year. Stanford struggled more in the trenches in that particular game than maybe what was initially led to believe, because if you just take a look at the box score, you'll look at a Stanford football team that ran for 177 yards. And so you look at that statistic and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, how could you say that Stanford struggled at the line of scrimmage when they ran for closer to 200 yards last season, Jake? And that's a really good question. And there is a method to the madness here. And that is because if you really take a look deeper into what happened in that game and not be a box score merchant, what I will say is that this Stanford football team last year ran it nearly 50 times and ran it for 177 yards. So it looks good if you don't dive much deeper than that. But when you're talking about a team last year that ran it for less than 4 yards a carry against a Hawaii football team that is not necessarily known for that trench play, that was one of the things that hurt them in that particular matchup, which led to them losing in that particular game, as well as what was a consistent issue for Stanford over the course of last season, especially when they get into ACC play. So Stanford got better at the offensive line, but Hawaii also got better with its defensive front as well. So that's something I'm really looking at first and foremost. Who wins that matchup? Who wins in the trenches? Also as well here, and I think we understand this at this point, Davis Warren is the starting quarterback for the Stanford Cardinal. And I don't think anyone is going to sit here and ask for him to go out and outduel Micah Awahata, I think that's certainly out of the question. But at the same time, though, what is that supporting cast going to do to help him out, right? Because one thing that I think Tabitha Pritchard did do is he took a look at his offensive skill players on the outside and felt that he needed to add additional weaponry. And that was something that he actually did do. Davion Godley from Weber State is someone that can certainly make an impact for this Stanford football team. Same thing for Nico Brown, who's someone that I'm personally excited about. He had over 1,000 receiving yards at Yale last season. That's someone that could step in and make an immediate impact, and you know that he's an incredibly smart football player as well. So it might be an underrated skill group that I don't know is going to fully shine because, let's be honest, again, we're talking about Davis Warren being the starting quarterback of this football team, but they're going to have to win against the DBs. They got to get open, especially knowing that they are going to go ahead and they need to make sure that David Warren has some help because, again, I thought Hawaii actually did a sneaky good job of adding to their secondary. So Elijah Palmer, who maybe is a little bit more of an unsung hero because, again, when you're thinking about Hawaii, you're thinking about how exciting that passing attack is, and rightfully so. It's absolutely electric. It is worth the Hawaii test. Elijah Palmer is one of the best DBs in the Mountain West last season. And he's going to be back and running it back again here in 2026. And he's going to have a bunny in Cody DeCamera as well. Transfers in from UNLV, former blue chip recruit. They got reinforcements in the defensive back room. The DBs at Hawaii are better than what they were at this point last year as well. So that's another element to this game that I'm certainly going to look at as well is can those Stanford receivers and those running backs, can they get open consistently against this Hawaii defensive backfield and more holistically against this pass defense that the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors had? Because if it turns into a situation like last year where Stanford is going to sit back and they're going to have to be a one-dimensional football team, and it gets to a point where it's such a non-threat in the passing game like it was last season, they can key in on the run, and any advantage that Stanford originally had in the running game at the line of scrimmage, it can be relegated to being a moot point because you know what this offense is going to run, right? But finally, taking a look at one more thing that I'm looking at and what is really going to sit back and be a determining factor to win this game is, we got to point out the obvious here. What is Stanford's plan here to deal with this pass defense? Hawaii's got some guys. Now, Poafe Ashlock, who's one of the best receivers in the Mountain West last year, he's not playing in this game. And that's a pretty big loss, even when accounting for the fact that you do have yourself a quarterback that can absolutely sling that thing around, and an incredibly tough dude. Everyone wants to talk about his flashiness and talks about the theatrics, but he's a tough guy here as well. And so Stanford, they do have multiple dogs in the secondary. They're really going to have to rise up in order to make sure that they handle their business. And when it comes to that pass coverage, they're going to have multiple dogs in pass coverage. Whether it's a Leroy Bryant, who was a really good pickup for the Stanford Cardinal in this offseason, multiple interceptions for the Washington Huskies last fall, or someone that's coming back and is going to be the heart and soul of his defense, Matt Rose, who was a second-team all-conference linebacker for the Stanford Cardinal. Those two guys, alongside the other supporting cast members of that defense, is going to have to step up. And maybe you can't completely stop Hawaii, but you can slow him down and maybe get him to hold the ball a little bit longer so that you could take advantage of any perceived advantage that you do have on that defensive line, right? So with all those things in consideration, let's go ahead and do this here now. And we're going to go ahead and pull up, what does the model say? So what does the internal model say when it comes down to, if I can actually get it going here, hold on. All right, here we go. So this is what the model was showing, and the current betting line is what I've seen as of earlier this afternoon when I was putting together this graphic. You're going to see something like this over on YouTube, or not on YouTube, but over on the on Twitter in a little bit with my personal game prediction here, right? So right now, the model and what the betting markets are saying, it's a very similar footing here, right? You're talking about Stanford right now on betting markets, and it could be FanDuel, it could be Onyx, it could be DraftKings, Kings, take your pick. Stanford is listed as a 4.5 point favorite. The model right now is sitting here and saying, hey, this Stanford football team, right about where it needs to be. It's a 4 point favorite. So essentially, the model and the betting markets are like, hey, we are singing kumbaya at this current juncture and at this current time. So, with that being said, what I think is going to happen, what is my personal thought? Not what the model thinks, not what the betting markets think, but what do I personally think? I do think that one distinct advantage that Stanford is going to have in this football game is that they are going to have that home field advantage. And maybe not in a sense of that Pyrrhic crowd noise by any sense of imagination. I know Stanford doesn't necessarily have the best home field advantage when Stanford has been down. It's a little bit more of a fair weather fan base. Let's keep it real for a second. But what I will say is that even though Hawaii is traveling out to California, that's still a good amount of travel that you're going to have to do. And I think that loss of Palefe Ashlock is going to really affect this football team. And it's to a point where at the end of the day, I actually am going to sit back and I think that this Stanford football team, they remember what happened to them last year when they lost that game to Hawaii. And they're going to want that get back. So I think this is going to be a particular case here where I think Stanford is going to end up getting that get back because I do think that loss of Palefe Ashlock is going to hurt them a little bit more than maybe what it's made out to be. And I think that Stanford is going to be able to do a little bit of a better job of leaning in the trenches. And while Davis Warren isn't a super talented guy, and I'm worried about him whenever they go into ACC play, or I believe Stanford also plays against Notre Dame later on in the season, I think in this kind of game, what Davis Warren at least provides for you is that he does have that starting experience dating back to when he was a starting quarterback for Michigan prior to the start of the Bryce Underwood era. And I think as well, like this is a guy that we're talking about that's been around for college for quite some time too. So he's seen a lot of football and he's played a decent amount of football as well. So here's my thing here. I'm going to go ahead and sit back. I'm going to give Stanford a win. I think Stanford wins this football game. And I also believe that Stanford is going to cover as well. Slight disagreement with the model, but honestly, the model can swing back and forth. So, the model is going to say that it's going to disagree with me, but a little bit of a shrug, not too much of pushback from the model. Quick admin note, though, Hawaii is receiving votes in the Redshirt Sports Top 25. So that's why they do have that receiving votes. One more note before we move on to the other game that we're previewing here tonight is if Hawaii wins this game, they're going to have a big time matchup against UNLV next week. And UNLV is also receiving votes as well. So early on, Hawaii has an opportunity to prove that, hey, maybe they do belong in the top 25 by the time the next alliteration does end up coming out. So that is something to definitely keep an eye on in the back of your mind. Definitely let me go ahead and check out this chat here. A little bit of a hot take. Not a hot take, but Bowling Green is going all the way. And listen, unironically enough, Bowling Green actually is receiving votes early in this season. We do have some folks in the Redshirt Sports Top 25 that did actually have Bowling Green as a preseason top 25 team. So unironically enough, they are receiving votes. So maybe it's not the craziest thing in the world. Definitely encourage you to check out that Redshirt Sports Top 25 where you can see that breakdown of every single voter and how their ballot ends up breaking out. with that being said, we still have one more game that we're going to preview here tonight. And then we had this unveil of kind of showing a holistic view of what does the rest of the College Football Red Zone cast think. And it's not just me either. So let me go ahead and paint this picture for you before we dive into this next little game that we're getting ready to go ahead and preview here, right? So imagine this. And I know there's a person or two that's in this chat right now that can definitely relate to where I am. Imagine this. You had a really good evening with your little boy or your little baby girl. You do the night routine. You read that bedtime story, and you have him getting ready, or her getting ready to go off to bed. And you're getting ready to sit back, kick back, and relax. And maybe for the first time in quite a few hours, being able to sit down and give your full attention to a particular football game. And if there is a perfect time to sit back and really enjoy that particular football game, it's got to be this one, because this type of football game, and I'm so glad that this game is happening in week 0, because if this was happening in any other week of the season, with the sheer volume of games that happen over a course of a regular college football Saturday, this would be the type of game where maybe at a more nationalistic view of things, this might be a game that might fall in between the cracks, like on the national stage. But because it's here in week number 0, I look at this game, and to be honest with you, I think this is going to be the very best game that we have at our disposal for week number 0. And it's going to be a big time matchup here. But, it's going to make you lose some sleep if you're an East Coast guy. But boys, I'm going to promise you right now, it's going to be so worth it. So 10 p.m. kickoff happening on the Fox Sports Network. I am talking about the Memphis Tigers traveling all the way out to Las Vegas and take on the UNLV Rebels. And man, let me say this. Can we just enjoy the fact that we have such a premium matchup as a standalone game? I know it's a 10 o'clock game, so it's a night game for our West Coast audience. East Coast, we're going to lose some sleep, but hey, I'm going to lock arms beside you, and we're going to enjoy this through and through. Massive, and I mean massive, implications in regards to what this game means, right? Because let me go ahead and just pull this up real fast. And let me just make sure I got everything squared away here. So this is actually got to come out later. I need something else here. Hold on. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. That's going to come out in a second. There it is. Okay, this is what I wanted. So if you want to reference back to this game, listen, among the G5 or the G6 teams, now that the Pac-12 is officially alive, we absolutely love to see it. This is a massive game here in terms of who gets that spot to go to the college football playoff. Because remember, there is a rule change that did end up occurring over the course of the offseason. It is no longer going to be one of those situations where you're looking at, okay, whatever top 5 ranked conference champions, regardless of where they come from, they're going to get in. No, they changed it up to where if you're a P4 champ, you get in no matter what. And then there's one auto bid now that the G6 fights for. So it matters more than ever. And right away, Memphis and UNLV have a huge chance to put together a resume boosting win on their schedule and a great first impression to begin the 2026 college football season. So that's really what's at stake here. And I mean, we have a couple of people that voted on the G6 top 25 that we personally started here on this channel. I think this is the number 1 G6 team in all of college football. And Memphis is not too far behind. Memphis is in that top 5 in their own right, second highest ranked team. So there's an early expectation that Memphis is going to be in the picture for the American Conference Championship, whereas UNLV has those same expectations as well. They're expected to be in the hunt for the Mountain West Championship at a pure bare minimum. And it really leads to the next point as well here and why this game matters so incredibly much, because perception absolutely matters when you get into late October or into November when it comes down to trying to figure out who are we going to give this auto bid for the college football playoff at the very end of the season. Because we talked about this on Wednesday's show the other night, we have kind of this perception of where we have a higher tier in the G6 and a lower tier in the G6. And based upon how we voted on this top 25 poll that we just showed you guys, the Mountain West and the American are on the same tier because both of those conferences got half of their teams in the top 25. And in particularly, we're talking about a top 2 team in the Mountain West taking on a top 2 team, at least according to our poll, in the American. So right away, you have that real measuring stick contest just to get a good grasp of, okay, this is where the top the American is at compared to the top of the Mountain West. And even though the Mountain West did get gutted by the realignment moves to allow the Pac-12 to be revived this past offseason, the Mountain West clearly still has some absolute firepower as well. And it shows in that top 25 early. So massive CFP implications for sure. And a lot of perceptional implications holistically in order to maybe boost the prestige of the Mountain West versus boosting the prestige of the American Conference as well. That is something to really keep an eye on. Even well after this game is played, if both teams have really good seasons, this particular matchup can come into play. Can we also sit back and just really enjoy the fact that this could be one of the best coaching matchups that we see over the course of week 0, at least from how evenly matched it's going to be? I mean, we're talking about Dan Mullen, who has instantly built upon, is always starting to build upon what Barry Odom has done, increase the talent profile, increase the national exposure that UNLV has gotten as a football program. He may not be considered, at least, he may not be a consensus top coach in the Mountain West, but bare minimum, he is at least a top 2 coach in the Mountain West when you're talking about Dan Mullen. And what is there to say about Charles Huff as well? Charles Huff, like he's a certified baller too. Like he absolutely comes out and does some really special things when it comes to his coaching prowess as well, whether it be leading Marshall to the Sun Belt Championship, whether it be his 1 year as well at Southern Miss, where he was actually kind of close to winning as many games as what Will Hall did over the past 4 to 5 years before Charles Huff came into town. Matter of fact, he had Southern Miss in his position to win the Sun Belt, or at least the Sun Belt West Division, before they had that unfortunate collapse in the month of November as well. So really high-profile coaching matchup, and I'm really going to be curious to see how the chess game turns out between Charles Huff and between Dan Mullen as well. I think that's going to be really fun from a pure X and O's standpoint to see what kind of punches and counter punches can they come out with over the course of this 4-quarter game. And then also on top of that, you really want to talk about maybe one of the more exciting games of week number 0 as well. If you love offense, guys, this game is going to be for you. Now, both of these teams are going to be starting some new quarterbacks in comparison to what they had last season. UNLV did end up naming Jackson Arnold the starting quarterback of the UNLV Rebels, formerly of Auburn, formerly of Oklahoma as well. We might see a little bit of Alex Orji, and maybe if we're a little bit lucky, we might have that Orji in the end zone as well. That could be something that comes into the play. But then how about the Memphis Tigers? They recently named their starting quarterback as well. And it's not Aaron Nolan, who may have been the more known name and the more known commodity, being a former blue chip recruit, being of Ohio State, transferring in from South Carolina. Instead, it's going to be Marcus Stokes. And Marcus Stokes comes from Division II West Florida, who's been getting a lot of positive attention lately with how they looked in their their FCS debut last night. Marcus Stokes is an absolute dog, and he earned that opportunity to get that starting job. Former blue chip recruit himself was originally going to go to Florida. Then he said some racially explicit words in a rap video, and that kind of cooked him from that standpoint. But we're going to have a lot of exciting plays on offense. This could be a game where, no kidding, I would be not surprised if between these two teams, we see at least 60 points put up on the scoreboard. If it approaches into the 70s, I certainly would not be completely surprised either here. That could absolutely happen. We could be in for an all-time shootout here. So what is really going to matter instead of just the pure coaching and who's going to push the right buttons and pull the right levers at the right time, because I think Charles Huff and Dan Mullen are both incredible coaches. But who's going to get that timely stop? I'm not asking you to pull out some free and outs or force the teams to have a really low number of yardage. I think there's going to be a lot of yardage put up, but really get those timely stops. Win the turnover battle. I know it sounds a little bit like coach speak, to be honest with you, but I think those things where you're going to give up a lot of yards in between the 20. This applies with UNLV. This is probably going to apply with Memphis as well. Who is going to, once maybe teams get into the red zone, force teams to settle for a field goal versus those teams getting into the end zone and scoring a touchdown? Who's going to be the team that is going to be able to provide that extra possession, whether it be winning that turnover battle, or maybe you pull some shenanigans as well in the special teams. Maybe run a fake. That fake ends up being successful, and instead of having that rare stalled drive that could truly be the difference, you're able to keep a drive going. And on top of that, you're able to continue to build momentum, because football is a momentum-based game, and momentum can swing very quickly, even in the span of 60 minutes of actual play time. So those are the big, major things that I am looking for here. So let's go ahead. Let's get back to that tail of the tape. And of course, we got to go ahead and pull up this model here once again. So let me go ahead and do just that here. So this is what the tail of the tape is trying to sit back and tell me here, right? So number 5 Memphis up against number 2 UNLV, according to our G6 top 25. Right now, and I'm literally looking at it on my screen, it's still matching what I made for the graphic earlier this afternoon. UNLV is listed as a 4.5 point favorite as of right now. Model is a little bit higher than that. The model does, in fact, have UNLV a touch higher, has them as a 6 point favorite, basically a touchdown favorite. Here's what we're looking at between UNLV and the Memphis Tigers. I think both of these teams are set to have really good seasons. I think both of these teams are capable of being in a position to compete for their conference title. And I think if you really flip this game, and this game was happening in Memphis, we could potentially be having a same song and dance. But because I view these teams so similarly, it really comes down to who has that home field advantage. And UNLV is hosting this game, so I'm going with UNLV to win. And I'm going to agree with my model on this one as well. I am rocking with UNLV to also cover at the same time as well. And it's for 2 primary reasons. I think that UNLV is going to be able to leverage that home field advantage. And what's nice about that home field advantage as well, Memphis has to make an incredibly long road trip to UNLV. And normally, when you're a road team and you have to make a cross-country road trip, the data says, especially in this new era of conference realignment where geography and regionality is kind of being thrown out the window, usually the team that has to make that cross-country road trip, and it doesn't matter how good you are, you're talking about that team struggling, whether it is to win or lose from a pure betting perspective. A lot of those teams struggle to even cover the spread here, right? So I'm going with UNLV to win. I'm going with UNLV to cover as well, primarily because of that home field advantage. Memphis has to make that cross-country road trip. And another thing that I do want to mention, Memphis has a lot of new pieces that they're going to try to integrate outside of that core nucleus that Charles Huff brought in from Southern Miss as well. So it's going to take a little bit for Memphis to get that together. So that is another key aspect for it as well. Going to be the best game, I think, of week 0, though. And I'm going to lose sleep because I got a toddler, man. And that toddler, it don't matter what I do. He's going to be waking up 7:30 sharp. And I'm going to be lacking in the sleep department. But, man, watching a one-possession game at 1 o'clock in the morning with college football playoff implications on the line in week 0, I mean, is that not a cinematic experience? I don't know what is, boys. So that's what we're rolling with. We're going with UNLV to win, and we're going with UNLV to cover as well. Now, as we go ahead, we did take an opportunity to preview some of the other games that that are going to happen over the course of tomorrow afternoon, and we did preview those games both on the Sunday live show and on the Wednesday live show as well. So if you wanted to check out some of those other games, those videos are already up on YouTube. So you can definitely check them out if you don't want to watch the live show in full. But I mentioned that because a lot of the other games that we have, like, it's not just me previewing the games. The entirety of the CFB Red Zone umbrella did sit back and also put their picks in. And one of the things that we started in the middle of last season was we did a pick 'em with us 5 guys. And that was how College Football Red Zone, we got together and formed this group, and they came under this umbrella that you see here on YouTube, right? Is, well, we met through this pick 'em, and we were able to build relationships off of that. And we, a tighter knit group than this time last year because of it. So because I'm not the only one that came out here and put on this pick 'em, we got some other guys that did sit back and actually came together and put some picks up on the board as well. So we'll go ahead and pull that up here now. So here we go. The very first rendition of the pick 'em among the College Football Red Zone umbrella heading into this season. And what's beautiful about this as well is that we're all starting from a brand new slate. We're all starting 0-0. And so the 6 of us came together and we all collectively voted that this is how we think things are going to go from a pure against the spread standpoint. So this is what we got going on screen. And there definitely is quite a few games here that there is this full alignment and full agreement here. So gonna run through those real quick. I mean, we all agree that TCU is going to cover. I mean, we just don't love what's going on here with what Bill Belichick has had to deal with over the course of the offseason, a lot of distractions. And the defensive coordinator in Steve Belichick, his son, well, he's actually dealing with some health issues as well. So the defensive play calling might be a little bit out of whack. Now, TCU's spread has increased quite a bit since then. I think it's up to close to 9.5 now. And that might more incline me to go with North Carolina to cover at that point. But at 7.5, I do really like TCU under that situation. We also all agree that NC State is going to cover their -5.5. Not all of us think that they're going to necessarily win the game. I don't have NC State winning the football game. But what I do have, though, is I do have NC State being able to keep pace with Virginia and make this a very competitive and a very close football game as well. So maybe not all of us think that NC State is going to be able to win this game, but we do necessarily think, though, that NC State is going to be able to keep this competitive against Virginia. We don't think that this is going to be a Virginia splattering by any means. So we all agree there. Plus, with North Dakota State, well, that's a different story, baby. North Dakota State, we think North Dakota State is just built different at the end of the day. I mean, this is not your typical FCS call-up. This is a North Dakota State team that has won 11 of the last 15 national championships at the FCS level. And they come up here to the Mountain West, and immediately, I don't think that North Dakota State is necessarily the best team from a talent perspective in the Mountain West, but I do think that they do have the best program from an organizational standpoint in the entirety of the Mountain West. So, and one of the top programs in the G6 right away, too, might I add. Jacksonville State is a good football program, but Jacksonville State is going to have to do a little bit of traveling to get to the Fargo Dome. The Fargo Dome is actually going to be rocking, and I think North Dakota State is going to be able to take advantage of Jacksonville State's weaknesses at the line of scrimmage, right? So we all agree that North Dakota State, I think, is going to win and is going to cover as well. Finally, what we have at the bottom here, Florida State. We all agree that Florida State is going to pound New Mexico State. Now, I'm not super high on Florida State, to be honest with you, but I'm not high on New Mexico State either. And, Tony Sanchez is coming into his third year leading this New Mexico State program, and it's still not close to being where it needed to be back when Jerry Krill was in charge of his football program, right? So, also, Florida State is going to be wanting to try to make sure that they get any complacency out, because there is a little bit of a look ahead trap here, right? Because Florida State's got SMU next week. So if they don't cover, it's likely because of that. And they're looking at the SMU game. Florida State just has significantly more talent than the Aggies. And with Florida State being able to play this game at home as well, I think New Mexico State is going to win and cover there. And then, listen, you just listened to me talk about UNLV as well. UNLV, we all expect to win and cover here, primarily because of that home field advantage. Then, of course, we got Stanford. I'm not the only one that's picked Stanford. Actually, most of the group did pick Stanford, with the exception of one. That's Birdie Booth over at College Football Only, who is down at ACC Media Days at our behalf. Hawaii, he picked Hawaii to cover that -3.5 and likely to pull that upset once again. So, that's really a lot of caveats here. We're definitely split on the Sacramento State and Eastern Michigan game. Colton, Reed, and AT, two of those guys are down in Charlottesville, and they're actually going to be at that Virginia North Carolina State game. Well, they roll with Eastern Michigan to win comfortably. My thing is, listen, I could see as a world where Eastern Michigan beats Sacramento State here, right? They're the favorite. The model has Eastern Michigan as a favorite as well. But we're talking about the same Eastern Michigan team that did lose to Long Island last year, and I don't know if Eastern Michigan got significantly better. So with that in consideration, even if I think Sacramento State can win this game outright, because I think they're being slept on. Carson Conklin is a dog, and I think Alonzo Carter is going to really prove a lot of doubters wrong from the get-go. I think even if they don't pull that off like I initially expect, I do think that this is going to be a closer game than expected here. So that's kind of what I'm looking at from there. And I saw some it might have been like a tweet here. I might have to, let me see if I can pull up the tweet specifically, see if I can pull this up, and we'll see. Can we zoom in on that? Because the people are wondering, what does San Jose State have on College Football Red Zone, on the Mr. CEO himself? And listen, it's nothing, man. Like, I think USC is an incredible football team. And you guys see when I put out my personal top 25 on Twitter, where I have USC as a top 15 team. USC might have actually been closer to 10 than 15, to be honest with you. I think USC is exceptionally talented. And I'm not super high on San Jose State either. But at the same time, if you look at that spread, 38.5 points for a team that doesn't necessarily have to travel super far and does have some offensive upside. 38.5 points is a lot to ask for here. And I look at San Jose State, and I think there is a world where USC is able to jump out to a big lead and they pull their starters out, like in the middle of the second half. And I think in that second half, I think what can happen is San Jose State is able to get some more points up on the board at that point. Whereas in the second half, USC is probably going to be a little bit more vanilla with its offensive play calling and therefore be a little bit more predictable as a result of that. So I think San Jose State can backdoor cover in that type of scenario. The model, my personal model, has San Jose State as a 37-point underdog. So still a significant underdog, but the model is leaning for the Spartans to be able to sit back and cover. So that's what I'm looking at from that particular perspective here. But hey, this is the entire against the spread pick'em that we have for week number 0. Unless you're participating directly in the pick'em, because I know how the rest of you guys think. For those of you that are in this pick'em, like I know if you're in this pick'em, you're going to advocate for yourself, obviously, because I would advocate for myself, because that's how I am as a confident competitor. But for those of you that are watching this live show, or maybe you're not watching this live in this very moment, but maybe you're watching it back and you're watching how like things play out after the fact, before kickoff, obviously. Let me know what you guys think in terms of like who you think's going to have the best record after week 0 or people's, because I'm looking at this list. I think it's certainly going to be possible here that we may very well have some ties. Unless like San Jose State is able to come through for your boy, because I would certainly appreciate that. Listen, we are gonna have an incredible week 0. When we wake up this time tomorrow, I mean, we're less than 16 hours out from the start of a college football season, and I'm just so gracious and I'm so incredibly happy that this season is in fact officially going to be here. I mean, it's been an incredibly long offseason with all the talk about playoff expansion, with trying to constantly figure out who's eligible and not eligible. I mean, that's absolutely crazy trying to sit back and try to figure out. But man, hopefully you guys enjoyed this live show. A little bit shorter than normal, but that's okay, because we're going to be able to enjoy 13 straight hours of college football when noon Eastern comes around. And I'm personally pumped for it. I hope you guys are pumped for it as well. We'll be back on Sunday with some of our reactions from week number 0, as well as maybe start to preview some more of these games from week number 1. But in the meantime, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone getting ready to sign off. Hopefully you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care. Good night, everybody. And boys, we are so back with the start of the 2026 college football season. Let's get it.